Hey everyone! My sister texted me last week and she asked if I could make Valentines for my nieces to give out at daycare. And I asked her for some ideas. So last night she texted me and said that she had a couple that she saw on Pinterest that she thought would be cute. So we decided on a Play-Doh one. Now I already came up with a design, but I'm going to quickly kind of walk you through my thought process on how I designed it, and then I'll cut it and test it. I always do a test with just one sheet before I print everything and make sure everything fits, because I am putting a mini Play-Doh in there, so I want to make sure that the hole is big enough. So now what I did was I measured my Play-Doh. I have the Cricut self-healing mat, so I'll show you guys after, but I put it on my self-healing mat. It's a little over an inch and a half on the bottom, and it's about 2 inches on the top. So I made my circle for the Play-Doh 1 3/4 inches around. Now I did that because I wanted to be able to go through almost all the way, but not to the top. But that's why we're going to test it, because we want to make sure that 1 3/4 inches is enough. So what I do first is I put a 1 3/4 inch circle on my canvas, and this is refreshing and taking a second. So I'm going to let that load, and once it's loaded, I'll come back and walk you through it. Okay, so this is fully loaded. Now I've already set this up. I already had it flattened. I unflattened it to show you guys. But because it is going to be white, I have my square set to white. So what I'm going to do is go to the bottom of my layers panel here, click this white rectangle, and then I'm going to change my background color to red so that my whole canvas color changes and you can see what I'm working on. Okay, so what I did first was I did a 1 3/4 inch circle, and then I thought about what size rectangle do I need. Now typically what I keep in mind is the print and cut size limitation, and I think, okay, so how many can I fit? If I wanted to fit 2, if I wanted to fit 4, how many can I fit in that print and cut size limitation? So I decided on a 3x4 rectangle. It's 3 inches wide, 4 inches tall. Now I start there. I can always make adjustments. I can always make it bigger if I need to, but I like to start this way. Now I can fit 4 of the 3x4 on an 8.5 by 11 sheet within the parameters of print and cut. So that's what I keep in mind. All right, so what I did was I typed everything out, picked my fonts, and then I centered my circle with the rectangle, and I just moved it to where I thought was good so I could fit everything, and it still looked nice and not too clumped together. So I have everything the way I want it, and I'm going to select everything and flatten it. That's going to compress it, and I did slice the circle out of here beforehand so that it will cut out. That's my preferred way of doing it. So then I'm going to save it before I click make it, because I want to make sure everything is saved correctly. And then I'm going to click make. I am using my Joy Extra, so I already have my machine family set correctly. So I'm going to click make, and then I'm going to change my project copies up here to 4, and that's automatically going to put 4 of these on my sheet of paper within the print and cut size parameters. Now something that I also want to point out, because this comes up a lot with people, you click I changed it to 4 and clicked apply, but something to keep in mind is these registration marks here. So if I click on this, you're going to see this red border here. That is your full print and cut area. That's everywhere that you can print and cut. So your registration marks are as far out as they can go, because you can move these around anywhere within these parameters. So say I wanted, say I'm doing stickers and I want to get a few more down here, I can do that. But once you click continue, over here on your preview screen, it's still going to show those registration marks all far out. But once you go to print it, it's going to zoom them in. It's going to fit them to your actual printing area. And it's going to do that because it's going to save as much space as it can. But it's originally like this because it's maximizing your area to move stuff around. So I have an Epson Eco Tank. I highly, highly recommend them. I've had mine for about 4 or 5 years now, and I've only changed the ink twice, and the ink's about $40 for all 4 colors, so I can't recommend it enough. Now, I'm not using my workforce, but it doesn't matter if I change it here, because what I'm going to do is use System Dialog. You leave your bleed on for accurate cuts, and I'm going to click print. Now this is going to open up my Epson settings, so I can change all of my settings here. Now if you have a wider format printer like my workforce is, you can change all of that, but I'm just using my regular Epson Eco Tank. So what I'm going to do is up here, I'm going to find that it's on my network. It's the ET2650. They no longer make it, but I've read the reviews on all of the Eco Tanks, and they're just highly recommended across the board. I do recommend a rear feed though. It does better with thicker materials. So I'm going to leave my plain paper setting, but I'm going to change the quality to high. Now, I do need a total of 40 of these, so ultimately I'm going to print 10 pages. So if I wanted to, I could set my project copies now, but I'm not going to do that because remember, we're just testing to make sure the hole that we cut is the correct size for us. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click print. It's going to send this to my printer, and then I'm going to grab it, put it on my mat, and it's going to cut it. So now I can set, I'm using just light cardstock. It's Recollections 8.5 by 11 from Michaels. So I'm going to let that print, and then I'm going to come back, and I'll quickly show you, in case you're new to print and cut, how it reads the registration marks, and then once it's done cutting, I'll come back. Okay, so you guys can see how my registration marks moved up to fit within my design, and you can also see my Play-Doh tub here. It's just one of the mini ones. It's like $7 for a 15 pack at Target. You can find them at Walmart, other places, and they go on sale a lot on Amazon. But you can see, so what I did is I just lined it up on here. I did the bottom first, so like I said, a little over 5, an inch and a half, and then I measured the top, and it's like slightly over 2, it's like right about 2 inches. So we're going to cut this and see how it fits in there. I want it to be snug, but not too like pushed out. Okay, so we've got the my printout. I'm going to line it up on my mat, and I'm again just using cardstock. So I can use a brayer if I need to. I'm going to load it into my machine. And if you are new to print and cut, you'll notice that a little light's going to come on where our blade is, and we're going to get, it's going to read those registration marks. It's looking to where to cut, so that those registration marks are going to show it exactly where it needs to cut. So it's going to cut that rectangle and that circle for me. So it's taking a second to think. My Wi-Fi is really terrible sometimes, so this can happen, but it will take a second. And if you don't have a Joy or a Joy Extra, you do need to click Go in Design Space. So that is what I need to do, and I just remembered that. So I went back to Design Space, and then with the Joy and the Joy Extra, you do need to click Unload. There are no buttons on the machines. So you can see that light came on, and it's going to start reading those registration marks, and then it's going to cut them out. So I'm going to go ahead and let that happen off camera, and then I'll come back and we'll test and see if our circle's big enough. Okay, so I clicked Unload in Design Space. It unloaded my mat for me. I'm going to push this aside. And I take all of my material, regardless of what it is. I remove the mat from my material. So I flip it over and carefully remove it. This is especially important with cardstock to avoid any type of curling or bending. But I do it with all of my materials just because I find it easier. And you just peel your scraps off the mat. I throw everything to the side and clean up at the end. That's how I work. And then what we'll do is we'll test our Play-Doh. Okay. So this actually fits perfectly. So what I'm going to do is just push it up as far as I can go. I'm going to get it right around that rim if I can, just so that it fits snug. So it did kind of bend up a little bit, and the hearts, it's covering a little bit of stuff. So I might make it probably like just a tiny bit bigger, like maybe 1 point, no, I think I'm going to leave it like this. And maybe what I'll do is just move my design a little bit so that the Play-Doh doesn't cover it up. But this goes all the way, you can see there's like a little bit of a rim there, so it goes all the way up there, so this fits in there nice and snug. It's not going to fall out. Alright guys, if you have any questions, just let me know.